meaning. And this prayer was written by the third Karmapa. And so before I start the teaching for this evening, I would like to recite this prayer. And I know that not everybody has a copy of it. So I'm going to provide this here, and then I will begin teaching when we have finished going through the whole prayer. And so you can think that you're taking refuge in the Buddha, the teaching, and the Sangha, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and that you take refuge for the benefit of all sentient beings. And now, having taken the refuge, now I'll recite this aspiration of Mahamudra of definitive meaning. It begins, Namo Guru. Guru, yidams of all mandalas and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and 3 times, kindly consider me, support and bless the fulfillment of my aspirations. Streams of virtue unsullied by threefold fixation are born on the snow-covered mountain of the pure intentions and actions of myself and all innumerable beings. May they flow into the ocean of the Buddha's 4 kayas. Until that is attained, through all births, all lives, may even the words wrongdoing and suffering be unheard. May we enjoy the splendor of an ocean of happiness and virtue. Acquiring the best leisure and resources, may we have faith, diligence, and wisdom. Relying upon good spiritual friends and receiving the essence of the instructions, may we practice them properly without obstacle. In all our lives, may we practice genuine Dharma. Hearing scripture and reasoning frees from unknowing. Contemplating the instructions conquers the darkness of doubt. The light of meditation clearly reveals the nature as it is. May the brilliance of the 3 wisdoms increase. The ground is the 2 truths, beyond the extremes of eternalism and nihilism, through the supreme path of the 2 accumulations, beyond the extremes of exaggeration and denial, the fruition, the 2 benefits, beyond the extremes of samsara and nirvana is attained. May we encounter Dharma free from error and deviation. The ground of purification is the mind's nature, the union of lucidity, emptiness. What purifies is the great Vajra Yoga of Mahamudra. What is purified is the stains of adventitious. May the result of purification, stainless Dharmakaya, be revealed. Severing misconceptions of the ground is certainty of the view. Sustaining that without distraction is the point of meditation. Training in all aspects of meditation is the best action. May we have the confidence of the view, meditation, and action. All dharmas are the mind's manifestations. The mind, there is no mind. It is empty of mind's essence. Empty, it is unceasing and can appear as anything. Having scrutinized it, may we find it. We mistake self-appearance, which has never existed, to be an object. Under ignorance's power, we mistake self-awareness to be a self. Under the power of dualistic fixation, we wander in the expanse of samsara. May we get to the bottom of ignorance and delusion. Not something, it is not seen even by Buddhas. Not nothing, it is the ground of all samsara and nirvana. This is not a contradiction, it is unity, the middle way. May we realize the mind's nature beyond extremes. Nothing indicates this, saying it is this. Nothing negates this, saying it is not this. Beyond the intellect, dharmata is not composite. May we realize the perfect ultimate truth. Realizing this, not realizing this, we circle in the ocean of samsara. If this is realized, Buddha is not elsewhere. Everything is this. There is nothing that is not this. May we know dharmata, exposing the all basis. Appearances are mind. Emptiness is also mind. Realization is mind. Delusion is our own mind too. Arisen, it's mind. Stopped, it's also mind. May we sever all misconceptions in the mind, not sullied by the meditation that is conceptual effort, nor stirred by the wind of ordinary distractions. May we know how to rest naturally and freely, not altering. May we be skilled in and sustain the practice of the mind. May the subtle and coarse waves of thought be naturally calmed. May the river of mind, unmoving, come to natural rest. Free from the polluting stains of torpor and dullness, may the ocean of shamatha be unmovingly stable. When looking again and again at the mind, which has nothing to look at, nothing to see is vividly seen as it is. That is the resolution of doubts about what it is and is not. Without delusion, may we recognize our own nature. Looking at objects, there are no objects. Looking at the mind, there is no mind. Looking at both, dualism is liberated in its own place. May we realize the clear light, the mind's nature. This freedom from mental engagement is Mahamudra. Beyond extremes, it is the great middle way. As this includes everything, it is also called the great perfection. May we gain the confidence that to know one is to realize the meaning of all. Unceasing great bliss without attachment, the unveiled clear light, free from conception, and spontaneously present freedom from thought beyond intellect. May effortless experiences be unceasing. May clinging to experiences as good be naturally liberated. May the delusion of thoughts being bad be purified in the expanse. May ordinary mind, with nothing to remove or add, lose or gain, unelaborate, the truth of Dharmata be realized. Although being's nature is always Buddha, not realizing it, we wander endlessly in samsara. May unbearable compassion arise in us for all beings who suffer endlessly. The display of unbearable compassion is unceasing. Within that affection, its empty nature arises nakedly. May we cultivate this integrated path without error, constantly, throughout day and night. The eyes and clairvoyances produced by meditation, the ripening of beings, the purification of Buddha realms, and the completion of aspiration to the Buddha's qualities. May we perfect completion, ripening, and purification, achieving Buddhahood. Through the compassion of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, and the power of whatever pure virtue there is, may the pure aspirations of myself and all beings be fulfilled in accord with our intentions. Okay, thank you. Thanks for listening. And so I appreciate your being here, and I'm going to say a short prayer. And after reciting that short prayer, I'm going to pick up where we left off last time, because last time we were studying this book. The book is called The Aspirational Prayer for Mahamudra, and it's by Trungpa Rinpoche. And I gave you the link so that you can download it for free from the internet. So we're going to go through this, this book little bit by little bit. Now, I think the thing to do is, now, do you remember last time which verse we left off with? Can you remember?
Number 7, Lama K.
We were on number 7. Okay, very good. Thank you. Now, did you, Jody, did you want me to put the book on the you know, the page of the book on the thing so everybody can see it?
What do you,
Yeah.
does everyone want thumbs up
Yes.
for one?
Okay, okay, I'll do that. Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, because it's pretty easy to find. And then everybody can read it, you know? I like Trungpa Rinpoche's website because you can get all of these teachings for free. and read them. Okay, I found it. All right, so I will start with a short prayer. Sanjay Chudang so chi chonamla, Janchu Bardu Dani Chap Suchi, Da Jijin so Jipe Sonamchi, Trola, Penchir, Sanjay Drupar Show. Holden Sawe Lama Rinpoche, Dagi Chiwar Pede Denshila, Kadrin Jambukone Je Sunte, Ku Sum Toki Mudrup Saldu So. Okay, thank you. So last time we introduced this amazing prayer that was written hundreds of years ago by the third Karmapa, Rangjung Dorje. And so we started, I started by explaining that the prayer is a mini teaching. It's a little teaching in summary. He gives the entire path of Mahamudra from start to finish in one prayer. And so when we read this prayer out loud, what we are doing is we're giving ourselves this teaching over and over again. And that part of the function of prayers like this is to help us to learn the path and also to help us understand the teachings. So that's what we started with the last time when we had this conversation. Now, if you have some questions, you can type them into the chat and I'll stop from time to time and take your questions. So if you remember last time, we started with this phrase, Namo Guru, because it's referring to the fact that the Buddha's teachings came from India. And so starting with a salutation that's in Sanskrit is very common. And then we started with the preparation for making the aspiration by asking the gurus, the Yidam deities of the mandala and the victorious ones to consider us with compassion. Then in verse number 2, we talked about the foundation of the aspiration, which is the pure virtue, pure intention and action, and the accumulation of virtue. So if we have virtue as our basis, then we can accomplish the purpose of practice if we can live and practice virtue. And it says here, flowing from the snow mountains of pure virtue and action, may they merge into the ocean, the 4 bodies or the 4 kayas of the victorious ones. So it all starts, this image of the ocean, of the river going from the mountain to the sea. It begins with pure motivation and the bodhisattva motivation to benefit others. I remember Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche used to tell us that unless we had the bodhisattva motivation, even if we were to practice the highest Vajrayana and Mantrayana practices, it would not amount to anything because we didn't have the Buddha mind that loves other beings and is compassionate toward other beings. And we would end up doing the practice for ourselves. And so that's why it starts with pure virtue and the bodhisattva motivation. And so then in the 3rd verse, we make the aspiration that we have happiness and goodness and good karma, and that is the foundation for our practice. Then, and the next verse, we talk about the possessing the freedom and resources. You remember the 4 thoughts that turn the mind toward Dharma? You remember those? That we have the precious human life, we have impermanence, karma, and the defects of samsara. And so this verse is reminding us that we have a precious opportunity and we should not waste it. And then in the 5th verse, he talks about learning scripture, learning the teachings of the Buddha. It frees us from the obscuration of ignorance. And then when we contemplate the Guru's oral instructions, that helps us to lose our doubts about the Dharma. And then when we actually practice meditation, we actually have experiences and can get realization of the truth of what we have learned in scripture. And so what's really great is that this is called the 3 prajnas, which is learning or hearing, contemplating, and meditating. Those of you who have studied Buddhism for a while will recognize these three words: hearing, contemplating, and meditating. And this is how we create our Dharma learning and how we bring it to fruition through practice. And then in verse 6, we talked about the ground, the basis of Mahamudra. Last time we talked about Mahamudra, Maha meaning great, and mudra meaning seal, like the seal of authenticity on a document, the great seal of Mahamudra. It's called that because it's how it deals with how we experience our own minds, and seeing the nature of our own minds as being emptiness and clarity. And so he talks here as how do we start that path toward understanding the nature of mind. And he says the ground is the two truths, meaning the truth of how things appear and the truth of how things really are. And then he talks about this, the ground being free from all kinds of dualistic notions. And so it starts with being free of all dualism, eternalism and nihilism. Eternalism is everything exists. Nihilism is nothing exists. And then he says, using the two accumulations of merit and wisdom, which are free from the extremes of exaggeration and denial, existing and non-existing. And may we attain the fruition of the two benefits, free from the extremes of samsara and nirvana. And so that brings us to verse number 7, which is where we're starting tonight. So thank you for letting me give you a little bit of a review about where we have been so far. So let's see. Can we do a, I'm trying to think if I could have, Charles, do you have the book in front of you here? Can you read this? Would we be able to unmute him so he could read this verse number 7 for us? Okay, see if it can be done.
Yes,
if you
I
can't,
can see your text. Thank you for putting it up.
Go ahead and
So you
read.
want me to go ahead with the verse 7?
Just the verse, yeah.
Just the verse, okay. The basis of purification is the unity of luminosity, emptiness, the true nature of mind. The means of purification is the great Vajra Yoga of Mahamudra. What is purified is the stains of adventitious confusion. May we realize the fruition of purification, the stainless Dharmakaya.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So here we have, we've been introducing various ideas. Those of you who've been studying Buddhism for a long time, you will remember hearing, contemplating, and meditating, right? You'll remember the two truths, the ultimate truth and the relative truth. You'll remember the two accumulations, merit and wisdom, and so on. And this verse talks about three things: the basis of purification, the means of purification, and what is purified. This is another framework for teaching in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So what's great about this prayer is that he is summarizing Mahamudra in every single possible way that a person might have learned Dharma. They might have learned it from the school of hearing, contemplating, and meditating, and so on. And they may have heard it through the basis of purification, the means of purification, and what is purified. They may have heard it from that point of view. So what he's doing is he's teaching every single method that you possibly could imagine to teach the view, meditation, and action of Mahamudra. So the basis of purification is the unity of luminosity, emptiness, the true nature of mind. So those of you who have heard these kinds of teachings before know that the Buddha said that our mind is not a material thing. It's not made of atoms or molecules. And yet, even though it is not a material thing, it's not nothing, because this mind knows things, it experiences things. And because the mind knows and experiences, this is called its luminosity. So emptiness is called mind's, I guess you could say mind's unestablished,ness, the fact that mind is not a material thing. And so that is mind's emptiness, which some people could say is its everythingness. And yet it is not a material thing. But it's not nothing, because it knows and it experiences. And so the basis, the fact that our mind is not established and can change and experience is why we can attain Buddhahood. That's why Buddhahood is possible for us, is because we have this amazing mind that has this capacity for being purified. And then the means of purification is the great Vajra Yoga of Mahamudra. So Mahamudra, again, means great seal or great authenticity. And it means that we learn how to meditate on mind as luminosity emptiness. So if you would receive Mahamudra instructions, you receive these instructions from a Mahamudra master. They give you these teachings, you practice them, then you go back and you check with the Mahamudra master, and you find out whether you have seen mind correctly. And so as a result, this master and student disciple relationship, the student and master relationship, or the teacher and disciple relationship, is how Mahamudra is conveyed from one spiritual generation to the next. Tilopa, the first Mahamudra master of India, he passed it to Naropa, and then Naropa passed it to Marpa, Marpa to Milarepa, Milarepa to Gampopa, and then Gampopa to Dusam Khenpa, the first Karmapa. And so this technique, these techniques of Mahamudra meditation are passed down from one spiritual generation to the next. But what do these teachings purify? They purify the stains of adventitious confusion. I know that when you read the other translation of the prayer, he just calls it the adventitious, and that sounds a little confusing. But when he uses the word adventitious confusion here, that helps a lot. So our mind is basically has Buddha as its nature, but we don't see our Buddha nature right now, because for so many lifetimes we have not recognized our Buddha nature, and we have fallen under the confusion of thinking we have a permanent, real, and unchanging self. And by thinking we have a permanent, real, and unchanging self, then we have a permanent, real, and unchanging phenomena. So we have dualism. And by misunderstanding the nature of mind and misunderstanding the nature of phenomena, we cycle around and around in samsara. And but what's in our way is this mere sheen of ignorance. Somebody asked my teacher, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, they said, well, how come we don't see our Buddha nature? If it's our nature, how come we don't see it? Why can't we be Buddha right now? And he said, because of all of our habitual tendencies and our ignorance of our Buddha nature, we've been wandering in samsara for lifetime after lifetime. But we still have Buddha nature. So the purpose of all Dharma practice, whether it's meditating on the breath awareness, or whether it's meditating on love and compassion, or whether it's mantra meditation, the purpose of all of that is to dispel the stains of confusion and to allow us to recognize the nature of mind as it is. So that's a little bit about verse number 7. And then I'm going to talk about verse number 8, and then we'll stop for questions. The next verse, let's see. I'm trying to think. Daniel, did you read last time? And if he's not here, oh, he's not here. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to see if somebody who has not read yet can put, I can't see the participants. So I guess what I'll do is I'll go ahead and read verse number 8. Aspiring to practice meditation. Now that we've been, now that the view of emptiness and luminosity has been presented in verse number 7. Now we're going to resolve to meditate. Resolving all doubt as to the ground is the confidence of the view. Maintaining this without distraction is the main point of meditation. Applying the meditation completely is the supreme action. May we have confidence in the view, meditation, and action. And so this is telling us how to proceed. What's the next step after we have received teachings about the view? What do we do next? Now we resolve our doubts about the view through meditating and acting. So for maintaining this without distraction is the main point of meditation. So we start not knowing the nature of mind. And so we ask ourselves questions. What color is the mind? What shape is the mind? Where does it begin? Where does it end? What is it like? And in the explanation here, Trungpa Rinpoche says the true nature of mind is luminosity and emptiness. One must resolve doubts about this. One must resolve these doubts by arousing confidence in the view. And he said you can do this through the sutra tradition or the mantra tradition. In the sutra tradition, one examines through reasoning. One gains the understanding through contemplating that all phenomena are really and truly emptiness. He said it's a view, but it's only an intellectual understanding. It's not a conviction that is realization. In the Vajrayana tradition, he says, one does not examine by means of reasoning or inference. Rather, one looks at the nature of mind and says, oh, the true nature of all phenomena is exactly like this. Of course, this is the view of direct perception based on experience. Therefore, one first discovers this view and the ground. To keep the mind undistracted on the view is the point of meditation. He says, when we're sitting in meditation, our meditation is good. However, when we walk around, stand, eat, work, then for us beginners, the meditation is somewhat lost. Nevertheless, one must apply it so it is not lost. When one applies meditation to action, then whether one is eating, working, or whatever, one strengthens one's mindfulness and awareness of the meditation. Thus, when one is working, it is supreme action, and we have true conviction in the view, meditation, and action. One must arouse the conviction of the view, thinking, this is truly the way it is, and arouse conviction in the meditation. Thus, we aspire, may we have this confidence. And one of the ways that you can see this is that when you're walking around in your everyday life, it's very hard to continue meditation. But what you could continue is mindfulness. You can continue to be mindful of your thoughts. You can continue to be mindful of your action. You can continue to be mindful of your emotion. And by doing this, practicing mindfulness, when you're standing, be aware that you're standing. When you're sitting, be aware that you're sitting. When you're speaking, think about what you're saying. Try to be present. This is one way to apply meditation in action. Now, we haven't maybe learned everything there is to know about Mahamudra just now. We're just in the process of learning it. We don't know how to practice Mahamudra meditation, but we're getting a really good description of how a Mahamudra practitioner learns the practice. We learn it by understanding the view and then meditating upon it. And so right now, all we might be able to practice is mindfulness. But if we practice mindfulness, this will lead to a strength in our meditation and in our everyday practice that will help us when we do learn Mahamudra meditation. So when we learn that now, then we can actually practice it in the future. The other way to practice in everyday life is to practice something called Lojong, or mind training. And I wanted that to be my sub-theme today. Bodhicitta. Bodhi means awakening and citta means mind. So bodhicitta is the mind of awakening. And it comes about through love and compassion, developing love and compassion for ourselves and love and compassion for other beings. And trying to be mindful of love and compassion is a good way to practice meditation in action in everyday life. For example, if you are going into a meeting with someone, maybe you're nervous about the meeting, but maybe in behind all of that nervousness, maybe you could tell yourself, may I benefit everyone who is in this meeting with me. And may I be of benefit to everyone, regardless of whether they agree with me or not. And that kind of mindfulness can bring the meditation on love and compassion into the everyday action of our life. So we don't have to wait until we learn Mahamudra meditation to take meditation and practice it in action. So we can use our mindfulness to think about and be mindful of our everyday thoughts and feelings and emotions. And we can use the compassion meditation of Tonglen. And by doing the compassion meditation of Tonglen, we can practice in everyday life the intention to be of benefit to others. So before I go to verse number 9, let's see if there are any questions in the chat. Okay, let's see. What is Mahamudra? Okay, Mahamudra, I'll go ahead and type something into chat. Maha means great. And mudra has many meanings, many meanings. But in this particular meaning, it means seal, like the seal on a document. Mahamudra means the seal. And you could actually call the meditation practice great authenticity. Why? Because when a person learns how to meditate on the nature of their own mind as emptiness and luminosity, when a person goes to a master and learns these instructions, they actually uncover the nature of their mind for themselves. And so one uses these techniques to experience the great authenticity of the nature of mind directly. One directly experiences the nature of mind. Rinpoche says, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said, when you see the nature of mind for the first time, he said, you might be a little surprised at how simple and ordinary it is. He said, when one thought has arisen and then disappeared before another thought arises, there's a gap. And in that gap, he said, that is sometimes called ordinary mind. He said, if you can rest there, that gives you a view of the true nature of mind. He says Kalu Rinpoche, in one of his books called The Dharma, he gave a teaching on the 4 reasons why Mahamudra is so difficult. Number 1, it's so close, meaning it's that space between thoughts. It's that openness between thoughts. He says it's too close to us. It's our own mind. It's so close we can't see it. And it's so easy. And that if we learn how to rest and relax the mind, that's why he says it's easy. It's because he says, if you try real hard, if you try really, really hard, he says it won't work. If you let your mind rest, relax, and be open, then it's easier. Then he says it's so profound because it's the basis of everything. And let's see if I can remember the 4th one. I can't remember the 4th one. So if anybody knows the 4th one, you can type it into chat. But I remembered 3 of them, so I got close. I can take the book off the shelf too and read them for you. But I'll make sure that I have the book with me next time. But he said that these are the reasons why Mahamudra is so difficult, is because it's so close to us and that it's so easy to practice. I mean, easy to practice, that it is so profound. And yeah, I can't remember the other one. So, okay, that person is saying it's so wonderful. Well, that's really possible. that is really possible. It is pretty wonderful. So, and everything, and so that was the first question was, what is Mahamudra? And it's something that we're all working on. Now you might think, well, I haven't received Mahamudra instructions yet. How can I practice Mahamudra? I haven't received the instructions. Well, I have a hint. Anybody who has learned Chenrezi practice, the mantra practice of Chenrezi, has learned a little bit of Mahamudra. And I can say that with confidence because I have seen this practice done in this way. Do you remember how Chenrezi practice is done? We start thinking that Chenrezi is above our head, right? And that we think that Chenrezi that's above our head is made of light and is empty inside, right? That he is completely made of light and completely empty inside. There's a hint here. The Dalai Lama said this is symbolic meditation on the nature of mind. That the Dalai Lama himself said it. I was there. He said, when you visualize Chenrezi as being made of light, that is your mind's luminosity in symbolic form. And when you visualize Chenrezi as being empty, meaning that he's not solid, that's mind's emptiness symbolically. That's symbolic of mind's emptiness. So when you meditate on the empty and light-made form of Chenrezi, it's a symbolic form of Mahamudra. So we have it on really good authority that deity practices, not just Chenrezi, but all of the deity practices we do are a form of symbolic Mahamudra practice. So in this way, we don't have to wait necessarily to receive a Mahamudra instruction from a great master if we have learned a deity practice. Because visualizing the deity as being made of light and empty inside is a symbolic way of meditating on the nature of our mind. And what happens at the end of the meditation? Chenrezi shines light upon us and it purifies us of all of our adventitious stains. If you read this in the 15th Karmapa's commentary, when the 15th Karmapa taught Chenrezi, he said, when that light shines upon you from Chenrezi's form above your head, it purifies all of the veils that are covering your Buddha nature. And the symbolic realization of that is that you turn into Chenrezi. Your body is now made of light. Your body is empty inside. And in the very center of your heart is the seed syllable Hri, the seed syllable of Chenrezi's mantra. And so meditating on this, we symbolically purify ourselves of all of the faults and failings that prevent us from seeing our Buddha nature. And then we recite Om Mani Padme Hung over and over again, thinking all form is the deity's form, all sound is the deity's mantra, and all awareness is emptiness and awareness and wisdom. And so this is a form of Mahamudra meditation. And at the very end, you dissolve all the things you have visualized, you dissolve it into yourself. And then you dissolve yourself as Chenrezi into your heart, into the seed syllable, and into emptiness. And so doing, you meditate on the emptiness itself. And how long does that last? Usually 1 second, 2 seconds. If you're lucky, 3 seconds. But the Dalai Lama himself said, no matter how short that meditation is, it's genuine meditation on emptiness. And then what do you do when you start to think again? 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds later, you think, I am Chenrezi. And then you revisualize yourself as being made of light and empty inside with the seed syllable in your heart. And so in that way, you enact the symbolic practice of Mahamudra. And so anybody who has done any deity practice, no matter which one it is, has practiced a form of Mahamudra. So anyhow, I wanted to thank you for letting me answer that question. Now, you can type into chat if you have any other questions. And somebody has asked, is the Kaju practice the same as the Geluk? I don't know, because I haven't learned the Geluk practice. So I can't tell you the answer to that one. But maybe is there any other question about what we've read so far?
I was chatting, writing a chatting. I will asking you in the chat.
Oh, yes. And I answered those two questions. Got it. I answered both of the questions. So we got that covered. Thank you for asking.
And also, you know, I just received the Mahamudra and the Bardo's empowerment and also suction, and from my lamas, and I practice every day. And I have some books that talks about this.
Yeah, you're very fortunate to receive all these teachings. It's really, really fortunate. So keep practicing, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Do other people have questions, or is that it for now? Okay, okay, so I guess we will go back. I'm still looking around to see if there are any others. So, okay, that's good. So we'll go back to the text. Okay, so now, oops, I have to get I have to get this out of the way. Let's see. I can't read because I made a mistake and put something on here that doesn't belong. There we go. All right. So now he's going to tell us about the view of Mahamudra bit by bit by bit. So the first thing he says is, all phenomena are the illusory display of mind. Mind is no mind, empty of any entity that is mind. Though empty, everything appears unceasingly. May we fully examine this and resolve any doubt as to the ground. Well, this first one may seem a little bit strange. All phenomena are the illusory display of mind. I will use this pen as an example, okay? So this is phenomena. And how can you say this is an illusory display of mind? Because you can write with it. I mean, right? So it's like, so in this particular way, he's trying to say all phenomena are the illusory display of mind. But what he's meaning is that whether or not this pen exists, you know, whether or not the pen exists, it's made of atoms and molecules, and each one of those is slowly decaying and falling apart. So this pen is at the very least impermanent and interdependent. So it looks like it's permanent, but it's not permanent. It's impermanent and interdependent. And that's why in the first line, he's saying all phenomena are the illusory display of mind. It's not only that this is maybe not what it appears to be. It's not permanent, not solid, not real, and not unchanging. But also, he is saying that, that my mental experience of this object is happening in my mind, okay? So this pen is appearing in my mind. This pen made of atoms and molecules is not in my mind, but a picture of the pen is in my mind. And that picture that arises in my mind of that pen is mental. It's a mental picture. And in fact, you could say that our mind is how we experience everything. We don't own anything. Even if my name would be inscribed on the pen, I can't even say I own it. But what I own is my idea of the pen, and so forth. Now, we can go too far with this. So I always tell people, don't think too much about this, because otherwise you're going to go running around in traffic, you know, and not pay attention to safety. But what he's trying to say is he's trying to say that our experience of the world is a mental experience. And that the mind that is experiencing all of these things is not a material thing. The mind, when he says mind is no mind, empty of any entity that is mind, when it says that, what he's saying is that mind is not a material thing, and it's not an entity. Those of you who have read Tralek Rinpoche's book, Karma, what it is, what it isn't, and why it matters, know that he explains karma, our mind, as a stream of being that changes continuously from one moment to the next. It is not a permanent entity. It is a changing stream of being. And so it is not permanent, it is not solid, and it is, and so forth. So it is empty of any entity. In other words, there's not a solid, the Buddha did not posit a material solid soul. He talked about mind as being a stream of being. But yet, even though the mind is not a material thing and is empty of solidity, everything appears in the mind really, really readily. We can experience anything, not just pens. We can experience a beautiful day. We can experience the presence of a friend. We can experience all of these things. And those of you who have studied Mingyur Rinpoche's books know that he teaches that the mind and awareness, the awareness that is in one's mind, never ends, never stops. And that's why he says here, the Karmapa writes, everything appears unceasingly, meaning that the awareness of your mind never ends. and that's what he means by unceasingly. And so Trungpa Rinpoche says here that there are two traditions, one that believes that only appearances are mind, that is, the appearances in one's mind. There's a difference between appearances, which are what arises in the mind, and apparent objects, which are these things out here. Then he says there are, and then there are others that are saying that they are like the appearances in a dream. Whichever of these two traditions you use is fine. And then he goes into talking about the scholastic or the scholars' descriptions of the mind-only school and the Chittamatra school. And I have to confess that since I'm not a scholar myself, I'm not going to be able to explain these to you very well. So we will have to rely on Trungpa Rinpoche's explanation. He says, what is emptiness? We think there is nothing. However, it is also empty and unceasing. Both the mind that we previously thought existed and the mind that we now think does not exist as a solid thing are not different. They are as if one. Previously, when we thought the mind existed, there was no real solid thing. We couldn't find a solid thing. Mind doesn't have a color, it doesn't have a shape, and so on. But now, when we think that the mind doesn't exist, we're confounded because it continues to manifest. How can this thing that doesn't exist continue to manifest? Why do we think all of this stuff? And so what he's saying here, he's saying the true nature of the mind is the same. He says, unceasingly, everything appears. The essence of mind does not exist, but appearances do arise. And he says, saying that everything appears from this empty mind is free from the two extremes of saying it exists or doesn't exist. And so in this way, he uses logic to help us to understand that the mind is not a material thing. But he says, what's the best way to figure this out? To meditate and experience our mind directly. When we look based on the pointing out instructions of our guru, then we see the nature of mind and think, oh, of course, it is like this. And so he says we will experience the flavor of the mind. So then he says, it's like a mute person tasting molasses or sugar who experiences the sweet flavor. So that is that's what he's talking about in verse number 9, which is this idea that mind is not a material thing, and yet everything appears from it. And those of us who practice the Chenrezi practice and have prayed the Mahamudra lineage supplication, it says the same thing. The nature of thoughts is Dharmakaya. It is taught nothing whatsoever, and yet everything appears from it. And so let's see. I think it looks like maybe another question has appeared. Oh, yes. I see someone's talking about the various transmissions they've received. Okay, very good. So number 10, we'll do number 10 and then see, because I think we have a few more minutes. Do we have a few more minutes? Just a few. Okay. Projections that never existed are taken as objects. Through ignorance, self-existing awareness is mistakenly taken as an ego. Clinging to duality, we have wandered in samsaric existence. May we discover the root of ignorance and confusions. So then he begins to discuss the 3 aspects of the view. Phenomena, this external phenomena, appear in the mind, and those are projections based on our karmic accumulation and our habitual tendencies. And through ignorance, we have taken this, he says, self-existing awareness. We've mistaken it to be a self. Clinging to duality, we've wandered in samsaric existence. So may we discover, may we get to the root of it all. May we get to the bottom of it all. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish through our Dharma practice. So first, he says, projections that never existed are taken as objects. And then through ignorance, we misunderstand the nature of awareness as being a self. We think there's somebody having these thoughts. And so that's a little bit about verse number 10. And so I think what we'll do is we'll probably stop here for now. But if anybody has thoughts or questions about this, that was a lot of material today. So I hope that some of it was at least interesting. Yes, Annie.
Is there any comment about the reality of the planet? If there is no mind and our perception of who we are and our self-identity is all based on, I don't know what, but not reality. I mean, I can't even use the word reality. Probably reality doesn't mean reality either. But our concept of the planet, that there is a planet, that there is a coming and a going, is that all also illusory? Is there any discussion of that?
Yes, there is. His Eminence Taisita Rinpoche has talked about this before. And he said that when the Buddha taught, he taught what are called the 2 truths, the relative truth and the ultimate truth. So relatively, yes, the planet is here. And yes, we are kind of making a mess of it. And yes, we are all here. And, you know, we're doing what we can to take care of ourselves and help others. So relatively, yes, all of these things are really here. But ultimately, they're not here the way we think they're here. Okay, it's not that they don't exist. It's just they don't exist the way we think they do. And I can give you an example. So you're having let's say you're having a conversation with someone and you misunderstand something that they say. For just a few moments, you think this person might be your enemy and you're very convinced of it. And it's like, oh my goodness, you know, this person, they've just insulted me. This is terrible. And you have this whole reality in your mind that something has gone wrong. And then the friend says, no, 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 here's what I really meant. And then you go, oh, I'm sorry, of course, you are my friend. So this is a little bit, this is a little bit about what seems to be happening to us all the time. We misunderstand things, okay? You know, the relative world is here, but we get, and we do have to take care of it. We do have to take care of it. And that is why the Buddha taught both the relative truth and the ultimate truth. The relative truth, he said, in relative truth, practice love and compassion. In this relative world, practice love and compassion and wisdom, right? But eventually, through meditation, you can come to understand the nature of everything. And once you understand that nature, not just with your intellect, but with your whole being, that's called Buddhahood or awakening. And then he said, you will not be confused by appearances and the relative world anymore. You'll know exactly what everything is. I mean, how wonderful it would be to know really how to help someone right now, because we don't, because we're stuck in the relative truth, you know? We have, it's like we have this ego fixation that this ego identity that we wear like a box, walking around with a box on our head, you know, that I think I am solid and real. And I think that this person is solid and real, and that we're all walking around in this little illusion and bumping into each other and making a mess. But if we can think about love and compassion and wisdom, it won't hurt so much. The relative world will not be so painful, and we might actually be able to make it better. Does that make sense?
Yes, actually, it made me think of the movie Matrix.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people. Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
yes, I mean, I certainly don't have the experience to understand what you're saying, but I do understand it in my relative sense of understanding. But maybe someday, I hope, I'll understand it in the ultimate sense of understanding.
you and me both. You and me both, because I read, you know, I read this book and I say, wow, I really picked a tough book to teach. You know, was it a mistake? And I'm thinking, not really, because even if we don't fully understand the words, if we recite them with a sense of, you know, may I understand this someday? I mean, really, right? May I understand this, because they're the words of an enlightened being, right? So if we can say it with that idea, and we can continue to practice what we've been practicing, we practice our shamatha, we practice our tonglen, right? Our compassion meditation, we practice our mantra. And these are all relative means that have ultimate meaning, you know, because
they're meant to soften your hold on your so-called reality, so that it can get uprooted without it feeling like you are pulling the carrots out of the earth and yanking.
I like that analogy. And yes, that's exactly right. At first they loosen it a little bit before they pull it out of the ground, right? You loosen it a little bit. Yeah. If you loosen the earth, it'll come right out. But if you try to pull it out, you know, so that's why we learn love. That's why we learn compassion, because learning love and compassion, we cross boundaries between us and ourselves, between us and other people, you know, because love helps us to overcome conflict and the perceived differences between people. And so that's why I think they have us practice so much love and compassion, so that it softens our being and it makes it easier for us to see the truth of things. I mean, just like the example I gave of a person who has a misunderstanding with their friend, if we have an open, soft, and compassionate mind, then we can see the truth of things much more readily than we could if we were angry and just holding on to our idea and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
I
Lama.
really appreciate this question.
Lama,
Thank you
can
for asking.
You know
So,
what? When I was having a back pain, you know what? And then also have a blood sugar high. You know, my Lama teach me and some yoga, Tibetan yoga, 2 more practice, and my back pain and my blood sugar is better.
Oh, you're very fortunate to have you have great, kind lamas. I mean, I'm telling you, you're a very fortunate person to be able to meet these lamas. It's just like a miracle, right? And then you can practice, and I'm happy for you. So thank you for sharing that. Max has a question. I'm going to take Max's question next. He says, if phenomena is a projection of mind, are other beings also projection of my karmic conditions? Yes and no. Remember the example we just gave of the 2 people who have a disagreement? So we are here. And I have asked Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, you know, are other beings really there, or are they projections of my mind? And the answer is yes and no. They're really here. We can see other beings and they can see us. So yes, we really are here, and we appear in a relative way to one another. But how we see them can definitely be a projection of our mind. What if we were raised to think that certain kinds of people are bad? And then we met a person who had that characteristic, then we would automatically think that person was bad. And that's just a projection. The person is not necessarily what they appear to be. I don't know if that makes it sense or not, but does that address your question, or is that not it?
Yes, I think it's the usual question, if it's sort of independent of, like, do things happen with other people completely independent of my karma? I think that's the question, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, is everything which happens between 2 people, for example, predetermined by karmic conditions, or is there like the factor from the other person, what they do as well? There is a more of a, you see what I'm saying?
I think I understand it. Let me see if I do.
Mm-hmm.
Akon Rinpoche once said, even if you merely walk on the same street with someone, you have karma with them. Mm-hmm. And so that will influence how you respond to one another. If you have a previous karmic connection, and then if you see them in this life, now you have a karmic connection because you've seen them now. So there's a lot of these karmic connections that happen, but how we experience other people is due to our karma very much. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, when he was teaching on the bodhicitta practices on Lojong, he said, have you ever met someone and instantly liked them? And he said, or if you ever met someone and instantly disliked them, he said, it's probably a factor of you having met them in a previous lifetime and having had either a good experience with them or a negative experience with them. And so as a result, our karma will have an impact on how we interact with other people and how we see other people. It isn't really until Buddhahood that we can see everyone clearly. Until then, it's all going to be flavored with karma and confusion, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It does, yeah.
Okay, I don't know if I still don't know if I've answered the question. But
I think it is pretty much answered. I mean, yes, I think I understand. It's just like a big mind twist, of course.
I don't know if I really don't know if I'm answering the question correctly or not. I don't really know. Okay.
Can I ask a question in relation to what he just asked?
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
In that example where you gave, where you meet someone and immediately you have a negative reaction, mm-hmm. Which may have come from a past interaction with that person. How can you then move from checking that negative reaction to moving to a loving compassion for that person without just staying in the negativity that just came like out of the blues almost.
I do understand what you're saying, because I think everybody's had that experience, and it's not a pleasant experience at all, to meet someone and have this immediate negative reaction. And I think that I asked my teacher about this once. I said, because if you look at the mind training books, like the one that I refer to the most, and this is an old copy, it's called The Great Path of Awakening by Jamgon Khantrul, The Great Path of Awakening. This is an old version. The new version is gold colored anyway. But I said, when you read this book, it tells you that when you experience something and you have a negative reaction, that you should notice your negative reaction and immediately think that you take on the negative reactions of all sentient beings in the negative reaction that you're feeling. Basically your negativity becomes like a little vacuum cleaner and, sucks up all of the negativity of all beings. And that by going through this negative thing, may you and all beings be free of negativity. So that requires a lot of presence of mind, and a lot of presence of mind, and a lot of willpower. I said, Rinpoche, does it ever get easy? I said, this sounds like this is a lot of work. I said, it's like a lot of work. First you have the negative reaction, and then it has a life of its own. And then you notice you're having a negative reaction, and then you got to get hold of it. And then you have to practice with it. I said, that's a lot of work. And he says, it's like that at first. He said, but if you continue to do it, he said, it will get easier. And he said, plus, he said, there are negative reactions that you have that are very deeply karmically rooted. And because they're very deeply karmically rooted, he said, they will overpower you every time. Whereas he said, this is why most people start practicing with their minor negative reactions. At least, taking their negative reactions and saying, okay, I'm having a negative reaction. I need to stop here. I need a timeout. I need to stop and take a breath. And then try to think about what to do. And a lot of my friends who are in 12-step recovery traditions, like Alcoholics Anonymous, they have a word that they use to help them remember. And the word is halt. And and basically my friend said, when you're hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, and you start to have a reaction, you need to stop and start to work with your feelings rather than just say whatever comes to your mind or react. Now, you know how hard that is. So we have to start small, having compassion for our own mistakes, right? And having compassion for our own situation, and then gradually work on having compassion for other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Because today I had that situation. I was coming back from an appointment, and when you come into my building, there's the mailboxes. And so I was going to go in and just get my mail. And the mail lady was at the other end. She wasn't even near my section yet. So I went to go get my mail, and she zoomed down, put her hand down in front of me and said, "You can't open your mail. Oh, the mailman is here. You'll get your mail today. Yesterday's and today's later." And it was just like so startling. I mean, she was just so, so, and I said later, I just said, that was very mean of you. And then she just started yelling at me. And then I left and I got on the elevator, and I started to calm down, and I thought, what was that? And maybe I didn't handle it that well. And what was going on?
Yeah, I know.
And
I really can feel for that situation, because my husband is a retired mailman, and in apartment complexes, they open the mailboxes from the back, and so everyone's mail is visible, and they don't want anybody to get in before they have relocked them in. And
I
so,
got that, except that in my area, because it's pretty big,
yeah,
the,
I
my section
understand.
wasn't opened yet. So,
I understand, but they have,
now I see what you're saying. So that helps me to have more compassion.
yeah, because they are not permitted to allow that to happen. So,
Oh.
but did she handle it well? Doesn't sound like it. So, I mean, so everybody is on edge these days. I have to say,
Yeah.
we're all going through so much right now. I think everybody is totally on edge. And
Yeah.
I'm awfully sorry that that happened to you. And I'm glad that you took a breath. And,
Yeah, I took a breath, and thank goodness there was a workman on the elevator, and he said something about we all have good days and bad days, and I kind of just laughed and went, "Oh yeah,
wow.
you're right."
I tell you what, think about this. You had like this burst of like negative karma stuff coming at you, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the very next moment you had something good happen to you. Now, isn't that just the way life is in samsara?
It's so true. Yeah.
It's like, right?
Yeah.
And so even though and there are so many ways to look at this kind of thing. We can look at it as this person had a bad day, or maybe you were having a bad moment, or maybe she was having a really bad day, or whatever. And then there's just like this clash, like the coming together of clouds, right? And wind, and then
Exactly.
suddenly, boom, there's a storm. And I think that a lot of what happens to us in samsara is like that, where the causes and conditions just suddenly come together to produce something. And then we're like, oh my gosh, I have to calm down,
Yeah.
So what we can try to do is, when we are not in stressful situations, that's the time to work with just breathing, and to work with, if sometimes mantra helps people, like the compassion mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum.
Mhm.
And sometimes if we can, when we're not in a stressful situation, use compassion for ourselves and others and think about that, then when we're in stressful situations, we may still have a negative reaction, but it will gradually improve, because that's why they call it mind training, because we're trying to train ourselves to do something we naturally have love and compassion, but we don't naturally love everybody,
Yeah.
and the world can be very difficult and make it hard for us to love it. So, yeah, so I really feel for what you went through, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for that, because I know I've been sick a lot, and so when I talked with Dan about your meeting, he gave me this little statement that said, "May my suffering end the suffering of all sentient beings." And it made me, when you just were talking, it made me think, oh, may my upset, or my anger, instant anger, and the anger of all sentient beings also,
May we all be free.
may we all be free of this.
Yes, exactly.
Especially during this troublesome time. Yeah.
That's
you
true.
so much.
No, you're welcome. I by the way, I've noticed that I hope that I was supposed to go more than an hour. Was I supposed to go more than an hour, or am I going overtime here?
That you're totally fine.
Okay, I'm totally fine. Okay.
Fine.
Well, then I'll wrap up here in the next like 5 minutes. Okay. And I misspoke, Charles. Charles had a question about whether I said the Lama was a projection of mine. And I'm sorry if I said that, I did misspeak. That is definitely not what I meant to say. All beings, our perception of all beings is a projection of our mind. How we perceive everybody is a projection, because based on our karma, based on how we have always been. The Lama also is part of our world. And so, yeah, we might actually misunderstand and project things onto the Lama that aren't there. So yes, there may be, we might project our Lama as going to be saving us. And maybe we will think that they will help us out, and maybe they don't help us in the way we think they should. And then we get mad. So I think that projections can get in the way of all relationships. I don't know if that's what you meant, or, oh, okay, thank you. Okay, good. Right. So I think that we've had a really good discussion tonight, you guys. Great discussion. Just the you know, the practicalities of living in this world that is so difficult. This past Sunday, I gave a teaching for Columbus KTC that was entitled "Dealing with Disappointment." It's on Facebook and Columbus KTC Facebook, and it's on Columbus KTC YouTube. It's talking a lot about how on edge everybody is and how quick to anger we are right now because of everything that has happened and the grief and loss we are experiencing. And that this not just this year didn't turn out the way we thought it would, but life is not turning out the way we thought it would. Society is going in a wild direction. The planet's going in a wild direction. And in the midst of all of it, the only thing we have control of is our own mind. And this is why the Buddha, I think, taught so much of the relative truth to be about love and compassion and wisdom and seeing things clearly, because we need this to help each other. We need love, compassion, and wisdom to help each other, because we're stuck here in samsara together. And we have to do our best, even though it's just the relative truth, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do something. Khenpo Rinpoche said, you shouldn't let these teachings stop you from being a benefit to beings. He said these are very, sort of like ultimate teachings, he said, but don't use this as a way of not practicing love. Somebody asked Khenpo Siltram Jamso, when he was visiting in Columbus, Ohio. They said, oh, Khenpo Siltram, you have like the highest view of Mahamudra. Wow. I could never imagine thinking like you think. Wow. So, but what do you think we should do? What should our action be, given that this great view of emptiness? What should we do? And he said, love and compassion. That is the only thing that makes any sense, is love and compassion. This is how you should be. So even though he was talking about emptiness from a place of realization, and he's a scholar too, so he knew all of the ways of explaining, he still said what you have to do is compassion. So that was really meaningful. Well, because of the time, I feel I have to stop here. But I really, really appreciate your patience with how complex this teaching is. And I'm just going to keep going. And verses 9, 10, 11, and 12, they all go together. And so I don't know that we'll get through them all next time. But they are all related in that they're all talking about the different ways you can see the world. And so we'll start on them next time, even if we can't finish next time. Okay. So.
Thank you, Lama Kathy.
You're welcome. I'm really happy that you're all here, and thank you for sharing your time and your practice with us. And so Jody and Daniel, what do I do now? So I just say goodbye now. You guys are going to stay and talk.
No, I think we're gonna end tonight. We're gonna end. But thank you for being here, Lama K.
Thank you.
It was great, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes, thank you so much. And I dedicate the merit of this evening. Yes, thank you very much, everyone. And we dedicate the merit, and I'll recite that short prayer that I like. Through this merit, may all achieve the omniscience of Buddhahood. May it defeat our common enemy, wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings. May we free all beings. May we free all beings. Guys, thank you. Take really super good care of yourselves.
Thank you, Lama.
Thank you,
Thank
Lama
you.
K.
Okay, everybody stay on for a couple more minutes. There's some things to discuss. Thank you, Lama Kathy.
Okay, Omane
Okay.
Peme Hung. We'll see you again
Yeah.
soon. Okay,
All right,
take care,
thank you.
everyone.
You'll stop the recording before you do anything else.
Yeah, hold on.